of underbuilding after the 2008 financial crisis. And while construction has picked up, it simply cannot keep pace with demand. Now, this chronic shortage has a predictable outcome. Prices go up while the wild ride of the pandemic and year after year cooling back down, the national homes price are still stubbornly high. Forecasts for 2026 are going to be a little bit mixed because some analysis expect modest growth between 1 to 4%, while others see prices staying mostly flat. Now, I know before somebody asks, what would my observation be? I'm assuming that it is going to stay about the same. And the reason why it is going to stay about the same is that because it was once a seller's market going into 2004, where more people were looking than people were selling. And in the seller's market, the seller has the advantage to up the price to the highest bidder and uh, walk away with a profit. Now, buyer's market is a little bit different because that is when there's more stuff for sale than there is people buying. And in a buyer's market, the bidder can offer less, far less, and that might be the best offer, and the seller's just going to have to sell. One of the reasons why a buyer's market is going to end up being better is because there are in scenarios where the seller got too many costs with holding, and ultimately getting rid of the property is cheaper than keeping it until the best deal pops up. Now they're selling out of desperation, which you can capitalize on. The fundamentals of capitalism, but it's not just the sticker price. We also have this problem because with the tariffs that have been going around, we've had increased costs of development, which slowed down building. And then we have the cost to finance the same house, which that particular cost has exploded. And as we stand in late 2025, the Federal Reserve has cut its benchmark interest rates a few times more than what we expected, bringing the target to a range of between 3.5 to 3.7%. But this hasn't brought the relief buyers hope for getting a house. The 30-year fixed mortgage rate is still hovering in the lower mid to 6% range, and most forecasters expect it to arrive at about 6.3 through 2026. Now, a few years ago, you could get a mortgage for around 3%. Today's rates can nearly double the monthly principal and interest payments, a devastating blow to affordability. So, if you can't buy, you rent, right? Well, that's the other side of the trap. The same supply shortage puts immense pressure on the rental market, with millions of who would be buyers forced into keep renting. The demand for apartments has soared. Now, as of late 2025, the national median rent is a subject of debate, with different sources giving different figures, ranging from about $1,370 to over $1,700, and asking rent in cities often closer to $2,000. Regardless of the exact number, rents are high, forcing many households to spend a larger share of their income on housing and leaving less room to save. Now, this creates a brutal financial vice. On one side, you have home ownership, which is prohibitively high. On the other side, you have renting, which is eating away at your own ability to save for a down payment. So your single biggest monthly expense, housing, is actively preventing you from getting ahead. Now, this is a trap. Your budget is being crushed while the dream of offering ownership gets further away from you. The, the housing crisis has a ripple effect that poisons your entire financial life, specifically your ability to save and invest, because this is driven by two other powerful economic forces. The first is going to be that stubborn inflation. Global inflation has cooled from post pandemic spikes, but is still above many central banks' targets. And forecasts for late 2025 put an average headline inflation for that advanced economy in a 3 to 4% range, which steadily erodes the purchasing power of your money. The second force is changed interest rates. In the United States, central banks have started cutting policy rates after earlier hikes. As I told you before, and I believe Saturday's show, this is a double edged sword. It can help you with variable rate debt like credit cards, but it also reduces the interest you earn on savings and money markets. So, I mean, here's the problem of real estate. If you save at the bank, it is profitable, earning you 1 to 2%. And if you're running at least 3%, the real value of your money starts to shrink. Your purchasing power is eroding every single year, and the cash that you're diligently setting aside is silently bleeding value. Simply keep the money in cash is going to mean that you're losing ground. Not to mention, depending on what neighborhood you're in, they might decide to knock you off because they know you got that cash. This is where housing becomes even more of a crisis, and it becomes a wealth divider. If you're a homeowner with low interest rates, fixed mortgage, your largest expense is fixed, while your asset, the house, is appreciating. You're effectively hedging against inflation. If you are a landlord, it's even better. Your asset is approaching or appreciating in value, and your income stream, which is the rent, is also going to be rising. You'll be directly profiting from the market force and squeezing your renters. Well, for most people, you are on the losing side of this equation. And it's a system that helps available, wanted uh, individuals to widely expand the gap between the asset havens and the asset haven knots. Woo. Now, I don't know if you know what that means, but where we're coming from here is that the cost to get in the door costs more than the cost to stay in. And the change that you have to make here is you have to change the difference between putting it all on the line to buy a house or putting it all on the line to pay this much rent. You can buy a house and you can benefit from buying that house during the house shortage by owning or backing the house that everyone else needs. And then the key is to do it in a certain way that fits your capital and your risk tolerance. So today we're going to be giving you these strategies because these are strategies that aren't reserved for the ultra wealthy, but on extensive research where it's going to break down, and each of these points are going to be small capital options. I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that. One of the housing options that we've heard about a lot, but we kind of forget about it, is house hacking. It's not like a it's not like an actual decoder guy. It's just a process that kind of like cuts through the woods of BS and actually works you straight into success. And it's going to involve real estate investment trusts or REITs. Now, the first strategy is a powerful wealth building tool. And for someone starting with limited capital, it's going to the beauty here is that you're not going to need nearly as much money as before. And it's also going to have a level of beauty because of its simplicity. So you're going to turn your housing cost into an income producing asset because it is a liability until you start turning a profit from it. So it's going to be a classic form of house hacking, which is when you buy a small multifamily property like a duplex, triplex, or fourplex and live in one side and rent it out to the other side. The goal is to have the rental income from your tenants cover most or even all of your mortgage with some kind of payment. Now, what if instead your housing payment being a massive drain, what if that was zero? And actually, I found two cities that actually operates like that, and I was actually pretty impressive. The money this frees up is staggering. Now, I understand that you guys are probably thinking, this sounds like a great idea, but it's a housing crisis. Don't worry, not going to sell you the dream without giving you the facts and the details first. If you don't have a 20% down payment for a building for a 4 unit building, I know most of us don't. This is where the strategy gets brilliant. The key is to use an owner occupant loan, specifically one from the Federal Housing Administration or FHA loan. As of 2025, FHA loan guidelines let you buy a property with as little as a 3.5% down payment. And as long as you are maintaining a higher credit score. Yeah. So all those episodes that we did about fixing your credit comes into handy. Here's going to be the critical point. This applies not just to single family homes, but to properties with up to 4 units as far as the FHA operates. The only requirement is that you live in one of the units on the property as your primary residence for at least 12 months. The rule is a game changer, and not everybody's doing it. A lot of people are buying into a situation, and the rest of them, they're kind of just sitting back watching because they're thinking that's way too much money. But let's break down a realistic value. These numbers will vary widely by the market, so it's critical that you do your own math. But let's say that you have a duplex for sale. A duplex is typically 2 units side by side. A fourplex is either 4 units side by side or 2 units stacked on one another, or uh, two more stacked over here where it's one building, multiple units. So let's say that you find a duplex for sale for about $450,000. Okay. Using an FHA loan, your down payment is 3.7%, which is about $15,730. That's a world away from $150,000, $450,000. So would you rather put up the $90,000 that you need, or conventionally a 20% down payment in comparison to the same? Me myself, if I had to do the difference between 90 grand and 20 grand, I'd probably stick to 20 grand. Now, your loan amount is still going to be $434,250. But let's assume that a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at 6.3%, which is the higher interest rates coming up, uh, as released by the estimates in late 2025, you find that your principal and interest would be about the same amount of money per month. Crazy. Around 26,000, about $2,700. Now, if you add property taxes, homeowners insurance, and the FHA mortgage insurance, all of that's another $750 just about. Your totally monthly payment comes out to a roughly $3,440 per month. Some people are like, oh yeah, that's not bad at all. Some people are like, shit me, way too much money. But you have the other units that you can use. They're not just sitting there. If you research and find that a similar unit rents for 1,800 a month, then you can rent it for 1795, undercut them if you wanted to. But you move into one side of the rental property, the other side you rent it out. That 1,800 goes directly against your 3,440. Suddenly your net housing cost isn't 3,440, it's 1,640 for owning an income generating piece of property. That's actually pretty dope. You are now living your in your own property as your own landlord while building equity for a net cost that is likely less than you would pay to rent a similar apartment. Just saying. And you don't have to worry about the subleasing contracts because you own the deed to the property. You can do whatever you want to it within reason. You can't tear it down and build up something else, but everything else you can do. And after 1 year of staying on that property, you fulfill the FHA owner company requirement, and you can now move out and rent out your unit as well. So, say for another $1,800, your total rent income is now $3,600. This is a per monthly income. Your total mortgage, paying 3,445, will now have a position that flow a $155 per month, gonna set the stones for the future. Now the asset is now paying for itself and putting money back into your pocket at the same time, which is not something in a lot of the assets that people look into do. But it is one of the things that you do need to look into. So this isn't about a passive thing, and this definitely isn't a get rich quick scheme because being a landlord is hard work, and it's one of the reasons why a lot of people are reluctant to get into it. When you first start out, get your business license, everything to that effect, set up your bank accounts, then you have to set up a payment option. You have to have somebody monitor the reception of that payment option. If they don't pay on time, you have to continue to provide them with warnings until they've met the stipulations for termination of premises, and then you have to file legal action against them to evict them out of their property, which all costs money. So it's not a get rich quick scheme. But be aware that buying a 3 to 4 unit property with an FHA loan can be extra hurdles because, like a self sufficiency test, you must run your numbers conservatively. But house hacking is perfectly designed for this crisis, and it leverages a government backed loan to give you access to a class that is otherwise out of reach. And house hacking is an active hands on strategy. So it's not something that you can do in passing and just let it keep sliding. If you want to profit from the housing crisis without the hands-on work, there are a few powerful and acceptable alternatives. Real estate investment trust is one of the ones we've talked to you guys about over the last couple years, but this one allowing you to use small capital options will help you become a lot more successful in a shorter period of time with a smaller quantity of debt being accrued. But think of a real estate investment trust like a mutual fund for real estate. It's a company that owns huge portfolios of income producing properties. Now, when you buy a share, you're buying a tiny piece of the apartment building. That's why some people will just pull up and catch you while you're running down the street and just fill it up. Because if you fill up the all of the shares, if everybody buys up all of the shares of that property, you divide the rent with everyone, but you have a massive quantity of money to put towards another property. For our purposes, though, we're going to be most interested in real estate investment trusts in themselves. Their entire business is renting out homes to people. So if you want money with less risk, you contract yourself out to, well, lend out your money to these, which is a shareholder. That's what you're doing. You lend your money out to these individuals. They take it, they flip it, they make some money, and they give you a cut. And it's probably one of very few ways, a lot like the legal actions, that are very few ways for you to guarantee that you're going to get yours out of the deal, especially when you're talking about long-term future goals. But why does real estate investment trust work so well? The core problem is a housing shortage driving up the rents. And when groups of renters stop showing up and they stop paying the bill, like when the government shut down, who profits from that? Typically, the landlord only profits from when the tenants pay, specifically when the tenants pay on time. By investing in a residential or REIT, you become the landlord and you are a fractional owner of thousands of rental units. And you direct benefits when your renting increases. Now, one of the biggest advantages is accessibility because if you're riding around in your car, burning up a bunch of gas, trying to see who's who, you could potentially miss it. You could, but you don't need tens of thousands of dollars for the down payment of the house once you find it. You can start investing with as little as $100 or through any standard brokerage account. And for the sake of TD Ameritrade does have a brokerage account. So that's something that you got to look into. Now, you can also look into fractional real estate platforms, which similarly let you invest with a few $100s instead of having to put up 20, 30, $40,000 to get started into the investment. And that is another critical feature because by law, real estate investment trusts must pay out at least 90% of their taxable income to shareholders as dividends. And this is going to create a steady stream of passive income. Now, to get started, what you would need is a brokerage account. Once it's funded, you can buy individual REITs, stocks, or ETFs. So, for an individual stock, you want to look at funds from operations or FFO. Put this up there on the screen so that y'all can see this. Oh, so I went to go put it up on the screen and it's pulling widgets. That's not what I asked you to do. Technology is your friend until it's not. Y'all know when we raise enough money, you got to get us a bigger laptop. We need like 4 grand to get a bigger laptop so we can get rid of all this lag. I have been overworking the hard drive on this little bitty Lenovo. And I'm trying to run it into the ground until until something shake. I get every penny out of my investment. I can tell you that. I bought this little thing for like $570 in 2023 for the podcast, and I haven't turned it off. Typically, uh, I keep this thing running until I have to do a reset for updates and stuff to that effect. But it is bogged down now. I can tell you that. So that's going to be a goal. Once we hit our goal, I'll be able to let you guys know, hey, we're streaming in 4K now with no lag. But let's get back to action. Let's get back to action. Oh, hold on. I'm listening to myself here. Ever been in one of them situations where I know y'all have done it, the karaoke spot, and then you can hear yourself singing on the mic? That's exactly what just happened here. There it is. Whew. Got like a deep, very white voice going on. Okay, that's not the show. Don't worry, guys. We got because normally we have a pop up that hits us in the face right about now. It didn't happen. All right, here we go. So we were talking about the funds from operations because you guys got to pay attention to that. Um, oh, we haven't even gotten to this part yet. We got to get to that part. Hold on. No, we got through this part. Oh man, we got through half of it. Oh my God. Y'all make sure y'all like and subscribe as we get through this recklessness. I'm like, dang, I done covered almost 50 pages worth of information. Wow, I read heavy. Okay, so we're on FHOs. We're giving you the examples of how to invest. There we are. FFOs is a key measure of a real estate investment trust cash flow. And that's why I wanted to get back to it before I started talking to you guys, because here on this and that, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between, I got to do research on everything that I bring you so that I'm providing you with detailed information that is factual information because I don't like to blow smoke. I like to tell you guys exactly the way it is so that you guys can go and look it up yourselves because I'm not at any point during the night besides telling you, hey, if you want more information that's in depth more than what we've already got going on, you can always slide into the membership the way Dylan has, and you get more information throughout the week about all of the financial things that we got going on. But I like the only thing, but what the membership, the beta membership is like $3, $4 a month, 300 something dollars an hour. You can get this information from a financial advisor. So less than $5 a month for a membership to get all of the inside scoops and skinnies that people overlook about how to make themselves successful from a podcast. I think that's a steal, but that's just my opinion. But outside of that, nowhere else on this podcast will I ever tell you, hey, you know, you should go and invest in and buy a whole bunch of information that you don't know nothing about. No, I will give you all of the ins and outs, tell you what's good to put your money towards. And then I make sure that I let you guys know to do your own research on top of that. Once you verify, because you go and ask the Google lady, and once you verify that everything that I'm telling you is accurate, you make your own conscious choice to diversify your standard of living to a more satisfactory level. Okay. This is just public knowledge that is something that you probably didn't know existed. And now that you know, you're probably really interested in how you can figure out how to make this work for yourself. Hang tight because we've got some more stuff for you. Some analysts forecast FFO growth for the real estate investment trust sector to accelerate in the upcoming 2026 year. An even simpler way to look at this is to buy a broad real estate investment trust ETF. And that's one of the reasons why, when we started telling you guys about this investment opportunity with the core satellite platform, we was giving you all of the stocks that pay cash dividends. And while the cash values are being updated as we speak, the dynamic is that all of those stocks are undervalued stocks besides Tesla and Oracle. But some of them you haven't even heard of them. And the ones that are real estate investment trusts are falling into the category of penny stocks because they're under $10 a stock. They're under or $10 a share. You've got some of them that are under $25 a share, and they're paying almost 18 to 20% interest on them, and they're worth putting your money towards. Because if you've got a $50,000 portfolio that's paying you a 1% interest every year at $5,000 a year, when you could have a $50,000 portfolio that's paying you almost 20% interest a year, where you'd be making almost $20,000 a year, the difference between the two is the volatility of real estate and the profitability of leveraging that risk. But not knowing a thing about hammering a nail into a wall, investing into a real estate ETF allows you to put your cash on a fintech. Special shout out to Fintech 101. Put your cash on a fintech app because there's a lot of lender apps out there. You got to watch which ones you get. Not the lender apps, the real estate investment trust apps out there where you invest directly into the real estate company. But some of those platforms will charge you fees to take your money back, and they have strict requirements as to how to invest almost like a CD, where if you don't let them hold the money for a hot minute, they're going to charge you enough penalties that when you take your money back, you're walking away with less than what you went in with. But when you get into like the Stash app, not Cash App, Stash, Stash, Stash app, like $3 a month for the platform, unlimited investment opportunities, worldwide connections to some of the things that are accessible to Americans while not being in that country. Just note that there's international taxing involved with something offshore from America, but there's real estate investment trust stocks, and those are the ones that's going across the bottom of the screen in 16 by 9, and in 9 by 16, it's going across the top of the screen. And those real estate investment trust stocks will guaranteedly, you put your cash up today, it pays you on its next X dividend date. And I tell you every day on the show when X dividend dates roll around. So if you're doing a dividend rotation strategy with ETFs, you can buy a stock today, sell it tomorrow. The money might clear the next day where you can then buy into something else the day after that. When you're using like physical shares, you have to wait for somebody to come and buy into it. It's not as liquid as an ETF. But if you have access to ETFs, you could typically roll into something right at the end. And that's the funny part about ETFs. ETFs on the ex dividend date or on the record date, if you get it on the record date before the ex dividend date, you only have to hold the share for that period of time and then you can sell it. And the rest of the month, you got the money in your pocket to do something else, which I rotate into another REIT. Some of the REITs are all close together, some are not. The ones that are close together, you got to guaranteedly decide which one you're going to get. But the ones that are like in the middle of the month, because a lot of them like BBA, not BBAI, Oracle, AGNC, not Oracle. Oracle is for TikTok. Okay, let's talk about REITs. PSEC, um, Orchid Island, that's the one I was thinking about. AGNC, AG Mortgage, those are all at the end of the month, like the last week of the month. But then you have Arbor Realty, and then you have Armor Residential. Those two are ones that happen in the middle of the month. There are quite a few more, but those are the lowest costing ones with the highest percentage yield. And Armor Residential, which just had an ex dividend date of today, uh, AGNC, Orchid Island, and PSCC are all monthly payers. AGNC, or no, AG Mortgage is a uh, quarterly, and um, Armor Realty is also a quarterly. But between the six, that's like six real estate investment trust companies that invest in real estate all over the United States and sometimes all over the world. And all you had to do is just put your money on the stock and let it sit, and it'll pay you money every month. You don't got to do nothing else. You just put your money up, and it'll get you your money back. You can reinvest the money in a drip scenario, dividend interest reinvested as principal. That drip will continue to allow your stock value to grow. You can turn your brain off on that. Put up a stack of cash, just let it sit. And the ones that I got on the bottom of the screen here or top of the screen here, depending on which one you're watching, um, those are the ones that's been around for like 25 years. So you know they're not going anywhere, right? And if you diversify amongst real estate properties or real estate investment trust stocks, you could divide it amongst five different ones. And if one did for some reason go under for whatever in 2075, you would only lose a percentage of your shares as opposed to all of them. Because if you go all in on one and that's the one that does go under for the first time in 50 years, then you lost everything. But if you diversify your money across a bunch of them, if one does go under, then you can offset it by the other ones that are going to be on the game. But you can also tell when your stocks are going to be negatively impacted. Like, for example, when California caught on fire, certain real estate investment trusts, there was a delay in the dip. Why? The fire wasn't what caused the dip. Everything catching on fire in California for 45 days had nothing to do with the stock market. You know what impacted the stock market? Rebuilding. Yeah, no one was there renting, but now we're spending money to rebuild everything. That's when the stock crashed. It didn't really crash. It went down like $1 per share. And then it went all the way back up. It went, some of those stocks went from $8 and $9 a share down to $6 and $7 a share. And those same stocks are now back up at the end of the year, almost 12 months after the fire started, are back up to $9 and $10 a share for the exact same shares, respectfully. So they only lost that dollar for a couple of months. So if you did a buy and hold, it's like, oh, California burned out. Let me buy more shares. Then when California's back to normal, increase in revenue, right? But there's some other ones because you also have ETFs like Vanguard Real Estate ETF, which is VNQ. You also have another one. We actually just finished investing in this one the other day, which was Schwab USA Real Estate Investment Trust. I'm gonna put these up there. I wasn't even thinking about talking about stocks today, but I see it after I did the research, and I'm like, oh, dip. I share these things with y'all as I come across the information, and I want y'all to have it. So I make sure that as soon as I see something like that, I put up on the screen, make sure that y'all can get it. I'm trying to get it over here for you guys over on the Twitter side. It's being difficult. Sending it to you guys over on the Twitch side so that y'all can see what I'm talking about. These are the ones that you guys can grab. The Schwab US Real Estate Investment Trust ETF SCHH. And if y'all just grab those, I don't even have these, but if you did grab them, then those are some that you could actually benefit from. Just do your research before you get into it because you'll see that it is worth getting. Now, there's more to it than this. There's more to it than just grabbing some real estate investment trust. But I wanted to make sure that I give you guys information about that because you're going to benefit from all the knowledge that we have coming to you tonight. Now, doing it this way gives you instant diversification, being uh, uh, multiple real estate investment trusts. And it's diversifying from the individual unit to a whole company that has already established a good balance sheet towards a bunch of individual units. So imagine that you invested 500 a month in a real estate residential investment trust ETF. As rents rise, an income of these REITs increases, and this is passed on to you through higher dividends and over the long term capital appreciation as the properties become more valuable. You can start up your own business. You can go and buy more real estate properties, rent them out, you have to advertise to rent them out, then you have to collect the rent, or you've got to pay a management company to do this stuff for you, and then you have to deal with when they don't pay, you have to deal with evicting them, then you got to deal with the repairs, and then you got to deal with putting somebody else back in there. More often than not, you're successful with the capabilities of putting someone else in charge of it. um, But when you start trying to target the higher risk tenants, you have to find a different kind of management company that's willing to put you through different kinds of risk, which we're going to be getting into that too. But just simply the tightrope walk of throwing your money up on a stock option and letting it make money for you in real estate as an individual investor, you can take your regular paychecks from day to day and start throwing them into REITs and start getting dividend back on that. And you're going to see that month. If you put it up there, $500 a month, the first month you put it up there, within 30 days, you're going to start getting money back, right? And you can either keep adding on to it or pocket what they give back to you and put up the difference or whatever the case may be, right? The outlook for REITs in 2026 is generally seen as positive. Most analysts are in agreement with this, and some analysts anticipating a comeback as fundamentals improve because as people get more comfortable with the tariffs, more people get more comfortable with the um, what the styles and other such situations that was going on when he raised what cabinets, couches, carpets, all this other stuff that he put tariffs on from overseas. That stuff made it hard to uh, get the certain. If you're trying to remodel your kitchen, it costs more money now, basically. And if you're in the fix and flip scenario, it costs you more money to fix and flip, which means you're going to raise the prices to offset that expense off to your customer, which has more money cost for your customer to pick it up, which has more of a requirement for a loan, which has a higher requirement for credit score because the higher loan request is going to still have that reasonably high level of interest rate, and you have to put down a larger down payment because typically the prices of the properties are costing an extra $15,000 per property or more, depending on the type of development, just based off of the cost of construction. Okay. And then you also had the slowdown on development due to deportation. So there isn't as many people building houses as there used to be, at least before the fourth deportation. So all of this leads to the delays in getting the property sale ready. And then once they sell it, it's higher and you have to bring more to the table to get it. You can still get it. You just got to bring more to the table to get it. So starting off with the easiest way to go, which is real estate investment trust, you can put your money up and not have to deal with all of that, not know a lick of knowledge about real estate, but you can learn along the way because you're putting your money in stocks and you should know where your money is going and what it does, but you could be making money along the way. Okay. So by investing in a real estate investment trust that uh, building new housing, you can also share in the profits while helping to expand the housing supply over time. But real estate investments are not without risks, and they share prices that have the shared level of volatility. Now, the fundamental argument is going to be strong. As long as there is a structural shortage of houses, landlords will have pricing power. And this is true. In even in lower income environments, you can charge more money for the rent because there's more people looking for a place to stay than there are people actually staying in places. They typically suggest that something along the magnitudes of 90% fill rate is the expectation. It's a goal, but if you have 76% fill rate, that turnover ratio, you're still doing a good job, which means you still got empty units that you could put tenants in. Now, if you were trying to be that person that's not trying to get rich quick, but trying to do the slow grind, and you went in there under market value, you picked up your properties, however you, whether you had to get them on market level, ready to move in when you started, or if you were going to do some buy and holds and renovate them out, however you ended up doing it. Once you start renting them out, if you were renting them out for a little under market value, where it's not the most expensive one on the market. It's what they would call competitive, cheaper than the other units in the area for the same size. You would have a larger quantity of people flocking to your units, which would give you a larger quantity of fill. And one of the things that we've noticed is, and I've been telling you guys this on a regular basis, if you put up a house for rent and you start off with an application fee of like, you know, 50, $75 per person, reasonable when you say per person out of the family over the age of, say, 16, right? If you've got a family of three, three applications. Now, each person that applies, and a lot of people are going to apply because the place is the cheapest one around. Each person that applies and puts up you start getting a bunch of money off of the request to live there. Then when you select somebody, you're going to charge them, even if they're at risk, you're going to charge them for the you're going to charge them for the down payment. Now, yeah, the down payment, the security deposit for the price is not going towards rent. And yes, you do have to return that money to them once they have left. But the whole time you have it, you can take it and invest it somewhere so that they're entitled to the receiving of the money in the back end, but you could be making profits off of that money while it's in your possession. As long as you make sure that their security deposit is accessible when they vacate, you can turn their $2 or $3,000 down payment into $10 or $15,000 over the course of them staying on your property. Um, but the strategies that we've discussed so far are powerful because they're based on market fundamentals, but they are just a start because executing them successfully requires ongoing education. You've got to know what you're doing and you've got to know who to do it with. Um, that old story of getting a house or getting a duplex and renting it out. Everyone tells you that story, but it's not that easy to get into. A lot of times people have to Airbnb out their house, get you a house and rent out the rooms. If you can rent out enough rooms, because you've got to deal with zoning laws, but if you can rent out your rooms as a multi-family housing situation, you got four tenants in the house and each one of them's paying rent. You're getting your rent money. You can take the money that you're getting from your tenants and you can go and rent you a place somewhere else. Or if you own your first house, you can mortgage your first house, go buy your second house, and rent out the rooms to four different tenants. You could actually charge a little bit more money on the rent because the average price for a unit is typically about $1 per square feet, and then you charge extra money for amenities. So if you're dealing with a common area, and then you're dealing with an individual apartment. I mean, an individual room out of the apartment or out of the house. If you had a 2,000 square foot house, you got four bedrooms. You're going to divide that up to about $500 per person, right? Then you're going to say, well, it's going to come with standard utilities because the utilities is not going to belong to any one tenant in case you got to put them out. So your standard utilities, you're going to overinflate the cost of the utilities, the water, the gas, the cable, the internet, electricity. And by overinflating the price, as long as they do not exceed the usage expectations, you're turning a profit off of utilities included. So now instead of you charging $500 for each tenant, where they're paying $2,000 as a group for the entire 2,000 square foot piece of property, now you might be charging like 750 or 800 per room for that exact same property, where four tenants would be paying you like $3,200 a month for a $2,000 apartment. Yeah. Now think about how if that one building really only needed like $500 a month worth of maintenance cost towards it, and you're pulling back like 3,600 or $3,200 off of it, you're still walking away with like $2,700 worth of extra money that could be going towards the mortgage for the second house that you bought. Now, you got to pay down that mortgage in order for you to have the capability to do that a second or third time. But when you think about how renting out an entire single family house to someone who can afford it, or renting out a room to four different people who can afford less, you would make a little bit more as a life hack to rent out the rooms, especially if you're next to a university, because college students might have enough money to pay $900 a month for their own spot, their room out of the spot, especially when it's convenient to the school. But they're not going to be capable of putting down like $2,000 to $4,000 a month by themselves, especially if they're full-time career students. So looking at your market, also remembering, I told you earlier in the show, when you start working towards economic zones, development projects, you start tapping into government funded construction because they're putting out an initiative to build this kind of stuff. So if you build one and you show them that you built one, they will give you the money for you to build another. So now if you're targeting like Section 8, VA properties, you start putting out a bunch of properties in a bunch of places where it costs you little or nothing to build it because it was funded by the government, and then you're doing a buy and hold instead of a fix and flip or ground up construction sell. Also, you have joint ventures that you can work on with nonprofit organizations, where, especially if you're doing land trust, where you subjugate the land from the property, you can sell the land, you can put the house on the land, build it up, subjugate the land from the property, from the house as a restricted deed. Okay. Then when you sell the house, almost like an HOA, they own the house, but you own the land that the house is on. They have the maintenance requirements of the house and the land, but you own the land that the house is on. So that 150, $200 a month that you got to pay the HOA, that is the benefit of a land trust where you own the land, you subjugate the house, you sell the house. They've got to pay you money even though they've already bought the house from you. The more properties you have that operates on that method, the more residual capital you're getting off of whoever owns the property. Because until they sell it to somebody else, they've got to pay you that HOA fee. Crazy, right? Now, if you've got the HOA fee where you're gonna regulate whether or not they can paint the house and what they can do to the house and this, that, and the third, that puts more work on yourself. But if you had a basic restricted deed that required them to pay for the usage of the land while having full control over their own house and requirement to maintenance the yard, you would control the value of the property, so it couldn't be overinflatedly sold and it couldn't be underinflatedly sold, and maintain the average appreciation of value of the property, but at the same time, you're holding on a guaranteed source of revenue. But again, like I told you guys before, if you're serious about taking control and want these deeper dives, this information and many more areas of information is in daily and weekly updates and breakdowns and market trends that are providing actionable insight every week in a membership. So you just got to go into the description and grab that membership because it's one of those steps that you need to take in order to get a lot more information to know what questions to ask so that you can start doing your own digging and getting the information you need to take action. So let's bring it all together because when we start talking about how do we make life cheaper, because a lot of us don't like sharing stuff. We don't like strangers. We don't like neighbors. And renting out our house to a stranger when we've already gotten settled with living here by ourselves or living here with our kids, renting out a house to random people, we don't feel comfortable with that. Finding an alternative, finding an alternative is the best way because rents are not going to get cheaper. If you invest in REITs and they pay you back, if you invest in uh, small development projects and get reimbursed back, if you put more effort in other ways to generate just a little bit more off of your assets than just holding on to them as liabilities, you will find yourself in a better position where your money will make more money for you and your stuff will make money that your money wasn't making so that you have more money to go around to cover the very disappointing increase in the inflation of housing markets. Now, the 2025-2026 housing market is a paradox. And for millions, it's an affordable crisis. And this crisis is driven by not only a housing shortage, but very, very stubborn and hard to control inflation and the elevated mortgage rates. It's a trap that makes everything that we're trying to avoid impossible to progress and get ahead. Whenever we take one step forward, we feel like we're taking two steps back. You pay all of your bills next month, then you look at your bank account and you think to yourself, oh, I did good this month. And then when next month's bills are due, you're like, crap, I don't have enough. It's the thing that happens. I actually was experiencing something like that just last week. I was like, man, we got it going. We've got extra coming. But then when I seen what we were about to do for December, January, and February, I'm like, man, we're about $3,000 short. We're going to have to make more money. And if you work on any type of job that you know is guaranteedly going to have a dip, uh, teachers, y'all got 3 weeks off. Some of y'all that work for the courthouse, y'all might have a week or two off. Some of y'all don't have paid leave, you know, and knowing that the holidays is next week and you might not have no work for the next 2 weeks, it is important for you to recognize and realize that you have to have extra money to cover the short check that you know is coming. So while yeah, you might have did good this month, you might have bounced back off of furlough in October and half in November, and you might have did good kind of getting everything squared away. You're looking at yet another down season. If you're self-employed and your income is impacted by these trends, your rainy day fund is requiring you to advance pay through the dip. That way you have extra on the back end. Once you're on the back end, once you start getting on the rise, now you got all this extra cash that you can do more stuff with. But if you put your money in places where the money is making money for you, the money that you don't need is making money for you, so that when you do need money, you have more money to get your hands on. And with the ETF, today is Monday. You put the stock up for sale. Well, hold on. By the time we wrap up the show, it's Tuesday. So by the end of the stock market today, your money would be accessible Wednesday, where you could deposit it into your account. And if you did the 2 to 3 day deposit, you'd have it by Friday. If you did an instant and you might have to pay a fee for the instant, you get it same day. It don't get no faster than that. Outside of it already be sitting in your bank account, not collecting any money. But the difference between it not collecting money in the bank account and the cost for you to get it advance deposit into your account today, that difference is the fact that it could be somewhere making 18% interest until you need it. It's not the best well, hold on. It is the best emergency fund, but it is not the best emergency fund for the sake of timing. Because if you have a problem at 8 a.m., you don't have access to that money at 5 p.m. You got to wait a few days. That's what makes it not perfect. But if you're the kind of individual that has the type of lifestyle that does not have catastrophic failure, that can't wait 2 3 weeks to get your money clear, or 7 to 10 days to get your money clear, if you can wait until your next payday to fix the problem, you could start selling stocks this week, especially if you were going to sell them anyway on a dividend rotation strategy. And instead of reinvesting the stock the next day, you just deposit it into your account. And by your next paycheck, you already got extra money coming in. And with the crisis that we have going on, this is a worldwide crisis, and most of the countries around the world that we address have real estate as a highly profitable thing to get into, especially if you're doing a buy and hold for the real estate. Because even in Japan, you can buy a piece of property for the cost of the taxes on the land, which is like 800 US dollars, and then you own thousands of acres of land. Now, when you start developing on that land, you're still probably going to spend $250,000 on the land. But why not buy 1,000 acres of land for $1,000 in Japan when you would probably be able to buy 1 acre of underdeveloped land in America, probably wetlands, for like 20 grand. See what I'm saying? If you have an extensively large quantity of land, you can pay the cost to develop it over time. And if you're doing buy and holds, you can put enough money into the property, get the government grants and benefits that you get from developing in that area for that market, put that towards expansion. So you don't have to take your profits and put it towards expansion, but you still have more tenants paying into the money that you borrowed against. You can pay yourself out of the money that you borrowed against, where you got paid first, and then you're putting the rest of the money into the business, and you're allowing the business to run its course. If you're doing a buy and hold, you're always got somebody there that's paying for it. Now, if you're cheaper than the other properties in the area, very few tenants, unless you're a slumlord, are going to want to move out of that neighborhood because they can afford the rent. And if you're one of those landlords, and I found that this is a pro tip from millionaire investors who have decided to keep their success higher, what they do is they don't raise the rent until you move out. So who gives a shit if inflation happens? Who cares what the price of the you're on an unproposed fixed rate from the day you move in till the day that you move out. You stay there for 10 years, whatever you were paying 10 years ago, that's what you pay right now. Why? Because if you have a good payment tenant that pays on time, why push that tenant out for a few extra dollars where you end up having a few months with no tenant in there paying money? Then you put in another tenant that's going to be less likely to pay the rent, all for the sake of greed. So if you built an empire on buy and holds, uh, under market value for the rent, which makes it easier for higher risk tenants who are willing to pay more money to get through the door. Because if they're fresh out of an eviction and they tell you the truth that they're fresh out of the eviction, you're like, yeah, I don't care about the eviction. Give me a little extra money to show me that you can cover 3 months. You're in the door. And that covers you. That covers them. That covers them. And then because you're never going to raise the rent, if they can pay what you ask on the daily, on the weekly, or whatever, you're in a position where that's a guaranteed 10, 15, 20-year tenant. Unless they lose their job, that's a guaranteed tenant. And if you're the kind of occupation, especially if you say, oh well, I want like 4 months rent plus a security deposit. The security deposit doesn't go towards the rent. The security deposit is a security deposit. So let's say your security deposit is like $800, but let's say that your rent is $1,000 a month. So I want $4,800 because you have had 3 evictions. $4,800 to get in the door. They give you the money. They've already paid for the first 4 months. And now they're going to give me 400 a month. I'm not raising their rent. Guess what just happened? If they lost their job, if they got sick, if they get hurt, if something happens, they can kind of miss 2 or 3 months worth of rent on paper because technically they already gave it to me. Now, some people are going to argue, oh, you can't do it that way. Yes, you can. If you put it in a contract and they agree and sign the contract, you can do whatever you want to do that is actionable in court between the distribution of assets for capital. Possession of premises on a temporary basis in exchange for capital can be actioned upon in a courtroom. So if you make the contract that way, yeah, yeah. You just have to detail what the money went to, how much was given, and then let them ride on it. Now, one of the things you're going to recognize though is that if you got 4 months in advance and you have it documented that you got 4 months in advance, and then they don't pay the rent for 3 months, You've got them on a month-to-month revolving contract. You don't have to fight with them after the first 12 months on the rent. You're not going to renew the rent because it is going to automatically revolve itself every 30 days after the first 12 months for the next 20 years on whatever the original contract was. Because it is on a month to month, you will be tapping on their doorstep every day for the next 4 months that they haven't paid you the rent because that's the 4 month leeway that you gave them when they first moved in. You ain't gave me no money in the last 3 months. On month four, I'm going to give you a letter that says that on month five, you got to move out because that's all you paid for. Now, if you want to stay after I've given you that letter, we're going to have to renew your contract, which means your rent's going to go up to the new market value. See how that works? Which will again, high risk tenant, you're going to have to give me the money that you owe me. Either way, it's a dynamic, it's a structure where you keep money flowing, but it still requires more effort to do it that way. And some people don't really like putting in a lot of effort. ETFs is one of the ways that you can do it with your eyes closed. You can do it with the lights off and your eyes closed, and you'll never miss a hole because you're guaranteed that if you put the money up there into enough different REITs, that some of them is going to pay you back. But if you do your research and you find the right ones, like the ones that I found at the bottom of the screen, if you're looking at 16 by 9, and the top of the screen, if you're looking at 9 by 16, if you do the right research, you'll find the ones that are putting out 18% interest, and you're going to find yourself in the most profitable position that you've ever been in and not even realize how you got there. And you don't have to deal with the maintenance. You don't have to deal with the tenants. You don't have to deal with the marketing. You don't have to deal with the strategies. You don't have to deal with the labor. You don't have to deal with the landscaping. You don't have to deal with lawsuits from injuries or evictions or anything to that effect. And if you generate enough revenue, you could fly to another country and start your real estate business in another country because foreign domestic companies, especially in places like Asia, love you bringing your business over there and doing something over there as long as you're hiring their people to run your business. Fantastic. Fantastic. That's cheaper for you, right? So, even though we have this underlying crisis, there is still an underlying opportunity. Where there is crisis, where there is conflict, capitalism allows you to gain off of crisis and conflict. One person's misery is another person's payday. One person's fuck up is another person's profit. That is capitalism. Capitalizing on the life of someone else, capitalizing on the effort of someone else, capitalizing on the desire to have the lack of effort from someone else. Now, we've broken down two clear small capital strategies that lets you use these market forces to your advantage. So you do not have to be $1 million man to get this stuff done. You could be working at a McDonald's and the $500 a weekend that you spend at the club, you could do this and see a whole lot more results. You could be working as a garbage truck driver or a Uber driver, and the 500 a month that you spend on hanging out with the bros having beers, you could be investing in this, and you could be seeing way better results. So if you take the time to do the research, if you take the time to find an alternative, you will find a way to have your money make more money for you so that you're not having to work so hard. Because again, if you got a $50,000 asset somewhere paying you 1%, when you could have $50,000 of assets paying you 20%, the difference between you having to make 40,000 a year or 50,000 a year to cover your standard of living versus making 70,000 a year off of the extra money you're getting off of your investment is that you haven't started doing it yet. Now, remember, first things first, house hacking. This is a very active path. You have to use low down payment FHA loans to buy the small multi unit properties and have tenants pay you the mortgage. When you don't have the ability for the low down payments for the FHA loans, you have to find a tenant, not tenant, you have to find agents that will introduce you to the um, down payment assistance programs. Because for low income individuals and moderate income and elderly individuals, depending on what your age is, some cities and states across the United States actually have down payment assistance programs. And down payment assistance programs are not first time home buyer programs. First time home buyer programs is you do certain quantity of things and prove that you can afford to pay for the house, and they'll give you somewhere between $8,000 and $16,000 to go towards the down payment of your house. But there's a down payment assistance program where if you've never bought a house before, that makes it better. But the down payment assistance program is basically saying that if you qualify based on your financial background, that they will put up somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000 towards the value of the property that you're looking for. And depending on what city and state that you're purchasing from, that down payment assistance might cover the spread on 100% of the closing costs for the property, covering real estate agents on both sides, covering the cost of the down payment on the property for the mortgage agent. And yeah, doing a zero down deal is going to have a larger principal, and that larger principal is going to have a larger interest rate that's going to then be spread across that 30-year fixed mortgage, or if Trump pushes it through, the 50-year fixed mortgage. But think about the fact that who gives a fuck? If you can get a $500,000 house without putting any money towards it, and then you're going to be paying $2,000 a month for it, pay the $2,000 a month. You already paying $2,500 a month for somebody else's property. Why not pay $2,000 a month for your own damn property? Okay. And if you get a property, especially if you get a single family home design that has a studio apartment attached to it on the second floor or on the back room. If you find a house that has it's like a acre, 2 acre, 3 acre scenario that has one main house and two other houses, part of that same house's uh, 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 deed scenario, you could pick up that lot in that deal on that FHA loan. And because there's one or two available rental properties on that property, you're buying a single family home structure that has rental property opportunities in it. Any house that has a townhouse connected to it, any house that has a duplex connected to it. How you doing, Horace? It's good to see you again. You guys could have put a lot towards it where you're making money off the house that you're living in while you're living in it. So either you have a cheaper way to go, make you a new buddy and keep getting money, or you can just rent the whole damn thing out and make you some more money. And if you've got a property that's generating revenue, that property that's generating revenue is going to generate enough revenue for the value of the property to go up when you're leveraging that property for capital to do another deal. Because you got to think about this, lenders want to know how much money they can get out of the deal if you fail. Well, if I'm asking you for money and the property that I'm leveraging can pay this debt off by itself, they're not going to really argue about it. See what I'm saying? And if the mortgage value is less than the rent paid, you're not paying anything out of pocket, which gives you plenty of availability to take your own in pocket money and invest in the second deal, the expansion. But again, this is active and progressive work. You turn your biggest expense, which typically is around 60 to 69% of your annual salary, into a source of income and help add a rental unit to a supply starved market, which is fantastic. It's a twofer. Second, you have the option of investing in real estate investment trusts, but this is the passive path because if you buy shares of residential real estate investment trust to become a fractional owner of thousands of properties, you'll be collecting dividends and the benefits from long term appreciation without having to do anything other than add money to the pot. So, what both of these scenarios have in common is a fundamental shift in mindset, seeing housing as an asset, not just as an expense. And there are ways to profit while helping ease the crisis, such as investing in new construction or using affordable housing programs. For those with more capital, value add strategies like renovating underperforming properties or buying in supply constrained areas represent the next level of advancements in this particular scenario, which we've covered in other shows, but we can cover it again. But when you have an underperforming property where it's not turning the quantity of profit that you would prefer, typically what they do with an underperforming property is they renovate the property and then raise the rent. Now, how people are currently doing it is that they will evict the current tenant, completely overhaul the property, and then raise the rent. I disagree with that method. Instead, as the tenants move out, you redevelop the property and then raise the rent. The only time that you should be evicting all of your tenants is if you have to tear down all the properties because of a structural issue and rebuild them from the ground up and then raise the rent. But kicking out tenants just so that you can raise the rent, that is not beneficial for you. But a lot of people are doing it because somebody can afford it since there is a demand. And renting it to the highest bidder is more appealing to the average communist, that not communist, sorry, capitalist, to the average capitalist. Uh, uh, Renting it out to the highest bidder is more valuable to them than the consistency of the current buyer. So if somebody else is willing to pay more for one of your spaces, you'll kick somebody out so that you can take somebody else in and get more money, but not positively impacting the supply chain with that type of mentality or method. The path forward isn't waiting for the market to be in any shape or form reasonably perfect. It's about understanding the rules of the game that we are playing right now and choosing to play it only to your advantage. So, building wealth requires patience, it requires education, and it also requires you to take action. You have to run the numbers for your own situation because I can give you a bunch of hypotheticals, but if it doesn't apply to your standard of living, it's not going to work. But the opportunity is there for you, and the choice is also yours. So if you've got any value out of tonight's show, make sure that you guys take the opportunity to hit those subscribe buttons, like the channel, follow us on Twitter and Twitch, hit the notification button on YouTube, because we got to give you a lot more information about other ways to make yourselves a lot more sustainable and a lot more successful as we start creeping into 2026. I'm going to be giving you guys debriefing as I find out information about the pending TikTok thing because I do believe over the next week or two, we're supposed to get a finalization as to what's going to happen with TikTok coming to USA. So I'm going to be telling you guys about it. I'm going to be telling you guys about the transition. And if there is any hiccups in the transition, I'll be letting you guys know about that. And that's going to be something that happens towards the top of the show. Unless I can have a whole show worth of information about it, then I'll make a day about it. But usually it's the first 15 minutes of the show. I give you guys a little information about what's going on with that, and then as after we transfer over, if we once we get transferred over, we might actually start seeing a lot of TikTok fans on here with Twitch and Twitter, which is going to be a whole nother ball game of communicators. Channel might be full of talkers by that time. Either way, though, um, the dynamic is going to be different because the United States platform is going to be on a different algorithm and a different structure than the Chinese platform. And the rules of live streaming in the United States is so much different than the rules of live streaming in China. So we will have a little bit more freedom of speech here, but not as much as we would hope. So make sure that you guys take the time to stay tuned because tomorrow again we're going to be giving you guys some investment opportunities that are going to make yourselves more successful, uh money building opportunities. Because I mean, we could talk about stocks all day. We just seen Bitcoin crash yet again, so we're going to be talking about how I told you so, because the argument was a couple of weeks ago was that, oh, so many spikes, and what I said was it goes down right after Halloween, right before Thanksgiving. It comes back up a little bit, but it's going to go right back down before Christmas. And then it's going to come right back up a little bit right before New Year's Eve. And then it's going to be on a steady decline in quarter one of 2026, where it is going to settle towards the first month, probably the third week into the first month of quarter two. That is what happens every year. Now, this is macro level observations. This isn't micro trading on a minute to minute scale. As I said, it was going to happen. It is happening. So Pralogic, who was up here before, swearing up and down that he had trade information, we did the research. We debunked the myths. And that's what we do on a regular basis. So if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, if you have any ideas, slide them into the comment sections. Let me know what you think. As long as your questions are appropriately structured, I'll be able to do some research on it and provide you with some more information that you wasn't aware of. How you doing, John? We've been here for 2 hours. We got here on time today. uh, so it's always a good look to make sure that you take the extra time out of your day to find ways to make yourself more successful. And you want to find ways to automate your life, because while it is good to be self-employed, it's good to be your own boss, it's good to be your own workers. What sucks is that you still have to take your ass to work. And look, as I'm talking about it, he said been working for 2 weeks with fractured foot. You're working for 2 weeks with a fractured foot because up until you started talking to me on this show, you didn't think to have other people working for you where you could pay the workers while you stay home. But now that you think about it, you can expand your business and you can get out there and pay people, train them, send them out there and have them do the work that you was doing. You don't have to climb that ladder. You can hold the ladder and send somebody else up the ladder. But if you are the only person in your company succeeds only if you succeed. If you are the only person in your company fails if you don't show up. It is worse than working for somebody else because you have to organize it and you have to run it. But if you're going to be your own boss, the best part about being your own boss is to organize it and then put people there to run it for you. Delegate. That way you don't have to be there. And you want to take the extra money that you're not using in the business and invest it in places where the money is making money for you so that you don't have to keep doing this anymore. If you ever decide to hang up your toolbox or your tool belt and say, that's it for me, you want to be able to make sure that you have enough money coming in where you don't have to depend on the idiocracy and stupidity of others. Yeah, okay. He said, true. I'm working for a friend, though. Doesn't change anything. If you're working for a friend, your friend is doing what you're supposed to be doing, expanding. You know what to do. You've been doing this for a while. You've got your own truck. You've got more than one truck. You don't have to take your friend's company from them. You don't have to become competition for them. You, if you're working with your friend, if they have a growing business, you can go from being one of the field hands at the bottom to being a trainer. You could go from uh, 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 being the guy at the bottom that's doing all the work to being a market analysis. You could assess the properties and give quotes. You could, because you're working with a friend who probably has more of an established company than a single man job. You could be doing something different than climbing a ladder and banging on a roof, where your fractured foot that hasn't quite healed yet because about 5 or 6 weeks ago you broke the foot and you only took 2 weeks off from work, and now you're back at work 2 weeks with a broken foot that's probably still got the hard cast on it. You should be doing light duty work instead of climbing the damn ladder. It requires y'all to find another way. Once you find another way, that's when things start getting better. Did I train others by setting examples, though? No, you are not training others by setting examples. Self sacrifice does not teach anybody other than you're willing to put yourself on the line for us. And the least we can do is show up and watch you do it. But you are not teaching everybody else how they can be working on your behalf so that you don't have to carry the load until your foot gets better. So you're not really training them much of anything. You're doing it for yourself. That's equivalent to the coach out there throwing the ball and catching it. The offensive coach throwing the ball to the defensive coach and running it in for a touchdown so that the team can learn how to play football. No, the coach never puts himself onto the field unless he's cursing out the ref while he tells his players what to do. And his players are going to do it if they want to be on the team. As a leader, you have to lead. Exactly. See, you say you talk about you remove the cast a day. You remove the so you have been outside of medical recommendation, working on a strenuous towards your injury job because you cannot afford to stay home. This is the wake up call that allows you to revamp how you do things so that you are no longer required to do that. Because I got to tell you, I broke mine on a motorcycle back in 22. I was back up in 3 months. Landscaping. Now I get paid to sit in this chair. I broke a back in no, it was 2002 when I broke the foot, and it was 2022 when I broke the neck and broke the back in a car crash. Got hit by a stolen car from the airport. Ironically, I thought that was weird. How did they get way over where I was from the airport? But the fact is that uh, enough spinal surgery that, surprisingly, I'm not in a wheelchair. But the fact is, instead of doing manual labor job, lifting 25-pound objects 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, on my feet for 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, where not only I've got a broken hand and a broken foot, a broken neck and a broken back, two busted knees. At the end of the day, it's like, shit, I can get paid to sit at the computer. I realized a long time ago that as men, we depend on our physical capabilities. Women depend on their physical attributes, how attractive they look. Men depend on how strong we are. But the older we get, the harder it is for our bodies to keep up with life. Each time we break something and get back into the game, it shows the world that we're strong. But internally, we realize how weak we are because that pain is too much to bear. But we still do it. And now the 20-year goal is to get paid to stay at home. And 3 years into that 20-year goal, well, actually, technically, if we start talking about the revamp change that I've made, I actually started changing in May of this year. Really, when we started doing the dividend rotation strategy on this podcast, all the information that I find for this podcast, I put it towards my own life as well. So I don't just give it to you to take up space and time on the channel. I actually give it to you because it's a way of life, and it actually is way better. He says, first I got to pay the truck off. Yeah, well, technically, you need to have a backup plan. So you technically got to pay that truck off, and then buy you a second one, so that you have another one in case the first one needs to be fixed. And then after that, you can start building. If you're going to depend on the one truck and be like, "Fuck it, I fix my own truck." If the $1,000 a month that you're not spending on the second truck, you could be putting that away. That's still 12,000 a year that you could be putting away. And if you're already putting away $500 or $700 a year, you start putting away almost 2,000 a year because you're not paying for that first truck that you bought. That's 24,000 a year. And if you're putting that 24,000 a year somewhere where you're making 20% interest off of that 24,000 a year based off the stocks that's going across the screen, if you're watching it from here or down here, that's extra money. By the time your feet can't do it no more, if you've got 300,000 in the bank, the 50, 60,000 a year that you're making will be coming to you from interest instead of having to get up every day and go to work. You could start doing it part time. You can start doing it as a hobby. You don't have to do it all the time. Then when you don't feel good, you can stay home and you're not hurting for money. That's something that people don't think about. You say, how fast was it going? Well, the vehicle that hit me was full speed because it was a massive crash. It totaled out the vehicle. Their vehicle was inside of my vehicle. So the whole engine was inside of my vehicle. I got T-boned. So my back seat was another vehicle. That's how bad it was. It was terrible. He said, got patron on deck. What Ciroc all in my bottle. Oh, Patron. Well, I know that you're trying to rap Harless, but if you instead of wasting money on Patron, you could invest in Patron stock and Ciroc stock. But instead of wasting money on Patron, because that's a $120 bottle of alcohol that you could subsidize by some Seagram's distilled gin for $20 and save you 75 to $100 a bottle and get just as tore up if you're going to waste money on getting drunk. Uh, Instead of you know uh wasting money on alcohol, like I told you before, there's 15, 20 stocks up here that are under $25 a share. And a bottle of Ciroc and a bottle of Patron could probably get you 20 shares of some stock that could pay you more money than what you're wasting on the alcohol. Is that true? Although my first major purchase is going to be a five-axle CNC machine. If you're doing a five-axle CNC machine, you need to be hiring you some employees to operate that machine. The goal is for you to make sure that you don't have to do it no more. That's the goal. Because they got a lot of patience, but you don't got a lot of. Oh no, you said you got a lot of patents floating around in your head, but a patent in your head is not a patent on paper. And any idea that you share with a friend over a beer is an idea lost to somebody else with the money to get the patent. So if you got an idea, don't put it on the channel. Take this idea and take that extra money and go and get your patents put together and then start selling the usage rights of your patents. Here goes another idea because we haven't talked about this yet. Every time you come up with a fantastic idea, you get a patent for it, and all user rights have to go through you. If they want to use your patent, you can rent the usage rights where they can create and you get paid for it. So your idea is just out there. And when somebody else wants to use it, there's a patent for it. And you get paid for it. Creative rights. He says, uh, I've been too long before I was on the side of that car, got hit, but I wasn't wearing my seat belt, so it all appeared in slow motion. And I remember watching the door crumble towards me. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that happens. That's the kind of stuff that happens. The My friend was hurt, but I wasn't somehow, and that's the idea. That's the idea. The goal is to make a lot of changes in your life so that you don't have to worry about the negative side effects of getting old. Because when we was young, we could fall off of something, break something, and get back out there and get to it. These days, we can't do that no more. Now we fall out of something and that's it. We done for the day. I like that patent idea, the rent potential. But that's the whole point. That's why people come to the show. That's why people invest in the podcast when they do invest in a podcast, whether they donate something from the likes and the subscribes and the special emojis and everything like that, the special thanks and stuff on the channel, the gifts that they got on the channel now, or if they just buy the membership and get the inside scoop on how to get certain things done from the membership. The fact is that I only bring you guys ways to make yourselves more successful, like this young buck talking about son, he's not gonna invest in Diddy alcohol. The fact is that if you're investing in alcohol, you're investing in Diddy alcohol because all the alcohol has the same outcome. It's the Diddy effect. But the what he doesn't understand is that it's not about who's created the name. What it's about is how big that stock market still is, even though that man's doing 30 years in prison. Who cares what he did? There's money still there. And if you want to make that money, you're not going to be biased against somebody. That is the loser mentality, is to say, well, I don't like somebody, so I'm not going to turn a profit. Fuck that shit. I can hate his guts. I tell you what, Diddy, Kelly, Cosby, Michael Jackson, I'll turn a profit off of all of them. I don't give a damn. If there's money to be made, I'm going to make that money. That's what you got to do. Millionaire mindset is about making more money, make money for you, not about how other people behave around you. As long as they're not ruining your image and your reputation by the way you do what you do, it don't matter what they do. And when I say invest in a stock, your money is not tied to your identity. Their identity is tied to their product. So if you want to be petty and take your money out of his stock, you'll take your money out of his stock and he has less money from his shareholders. But if the product is fucking selling, because alcoholics are alcoholics, and half the alcoholics don't know who it belongs to. They buy it because it's a name brand that they grew up with when they were clubbing as teenagers. Ciroc Patron is still selling. If you're not going to promote it, well, if you're not going to invest in it, why promote it by rapping the song in the podcast? He's missing out on a good thing. Um, Joel says, yeah, 20 years old, I used to be able to fall 2.5 stories and I'd get back up. Shit, I ain't falling 2.5 stories. I used to jump 2.5 stories deliberately. He said, now it's 12 feet and I'm done. Exactly. And in 5 years, 10 years from now, you might slip and that's it. You don't even have to fall. You might slip and that be your whole hip, your back, everything. You might just drag your foot across the ground just a little bit too tough. You know what I mean? To step on two or three extra rocks with shoes on now, and that be it for you. You know what I mean? So we got to set ourselves up for the future. It's not about what you used to do because you've been doing it for 30 years and you've got 15 more years left in you. And in that 15 years, you have to have yourself 70% of the way towards your 20-year goal of not having to do this no more. Before you're forced to retire due to physical injury, you want to set yourself up for the type of retirement where you can comfortably say, I appreciate it, but I don't need it no more. Or fuck this shit, I'm out. One way or another, one way or another, you've got to be able to walk out. You have got to be like the ultimate opportunist edge, only person in the WWE that was forced to retire as a champion. Most other people who walk out of the game leave a loser. They have to lose to the next generation. Edge was the only person, won the championship, broke his neck, forced to retire as champion. At the end of the day, most of them are not still rich. They're popular, but they're not still rich. You don't have to be superfluously rich. You just have to have whatever standard of living that you have, the cost of that standard to be covered by the income that you're sitting on from the assets that you have obtained over the past 30 years or at least the next 15. Buying a bunch more equipment to be the big dog on the construction block, that makes you the biggest dog on the construction block. But when you quit or when you can't, your equipment will still be there being used by somebody else because you can't come in anymore. Worst case scenario, you're going to sell your used equipment to get back some of the money that you invested in your used equipment. And if you bought the equipment used from somebody else who had already sold it because they couldn't do it anymore, it's not even yours. You're just renting it for the moment because you're going to sell it to somebody else who's going to do the exact same thing and they're going to use it until they can't use it anymore. But nobody's thinking, why am I not setting up a scenario where I don't have to work anymore? It's not about being lazy because life expectancy is getting far and far into the hundreds. Those of us that's going to cut this shit out, we're going to stop working in our 60s and 70s, probably still got 20 or 30 years of life left ahead of us. Too old to work, too young to die. Social Security is not going to give you more than $800 a month, and most people's rent is 1,500. Not a lot of us got food assistance programs, and at the end of the day, if you can't afford to live off the 800 a month they giving you, keep in mind Donald Trump got you paying for your health care out of your disability, and that sometimes can be upward of $750 a month. The government still only giving you 800 a month for your disability. And that's if you was paying Social Security off the last 10 years. If you wasn't paying Social Security off the last 10 years, you're not likely to get that disability. Okay? You're not likely to get SSDI because you can work. And you ain't paid into the pot so in recent times. So if you don't have the ability to say, well, shit, you say you've been doing it for 30 years. After 20 years, if you want to quit, you would have been doing it for 50, which will put you somewhere closer to 65, 70 years old, which means you still got 15 to 20 years more to go. And if you don't have 20 years of money set aside for your retirement right now, that is the goal that you're trying to get over the next 20 years. If 20 more years worth of I don't have to do shit. And whatever type of life you want to live, whether it's hanging out at the house and going fishing on the weekends or traveling the world, whatever kind of life that is, you're trying to, over the next 15 to 20 years, stack that capital up so that there is a way for you to make that happen. Is it uh is it what happened to old people in Japan? No, the old people in Japan got old. They got money back by money back by money, most of them. But the age gap, because they stopped having kids young, they also had selective births because of the birth laws in there for population control. And now you've got 40-year gap between the last generation and the next generation. Over in Asia, it's not the right to work state that we have in the United States. Over in Asia, you mandatorily have to go to work, more or less, and the employers have to pay you whether you're there or not. So the dynamic is that they have more PTO time and everything to that effect because as an employer, they have to provide for you. It's more of a cog in the wheel style scenario. They have to give you money for your standard of living to some degree, and you have to bring your ass into work to some degree. Now, yeah, you can find yourself in a situation where you're completely unemployed You don't have a way, your entrepreneurship, but that's less often over there than what it is over here. But if you did get your severance check, you did your 20, 30 years, you got laid off, and the money ran out, just like over there in Japan, where they're living to be 85 years old, 94 years old. They stopped working at 72, thought that it was going to be good. Some of them stopped working at 79, only had 8 years of money, and now they're broke, living off their kids because they don't have any more money to go around. And if you don't have kids, really and truly, the 80s babies was investment opportunities because the more kids you had, the more kids you could retire on when you got old. But these days, the children don't do that. They don't got no respect for their ancestors. So they going off and living their own best life. And when the ancestors get old, they ain't got nobody to fall back on. So since you don't have a family member that's going to swoop in and say, oh, I'm going to take care of grandpa till grandpa dies, you don't have any extra capital to hold you down when your money run out. So if you're not trying to build it, you're failing yourself because 2035 is going to be the check-in date to see how much success have you made since you started coming to the show. And if your ass is still paycheck to paycheck, I don't know what to tell you. Is that my ex thinks she's going to live on SSDI? She might, but she ain't going to be a. He said thinking it's 1,700 a month. She's lucky if she gets six. That's the point. She if she get between 6 and 8. Um, then if she got dependents, they might give her a little more just so that they could take it away and taxes child support. Uh, because they take child support out of the disability and give it to whoever's got the kids. So they might give her 9. And if you got the kids and she's gonna leave you with the kids, she might get 9 and give you 3 and keep 6. She still ain't gonna have enough money to live off of. At the end of the day, it ain't enough. So with your SSDI, here go the funny part about SSDI and SSI. You can only make about $1,000 extra a month worth of money that does not hurt your money. When you start making more than $1,000 a month on SSI or SSDI, they take $2 away from you for every $1 you make. So if you make $1,500, you making it yourself. If you make 1,000, they'll give you your 800. But if you make 1,400, they're gonna take away 800 out of your 1,400. They're gonna take 2 for 1 over that 1,000, which means to prevent from making too much money, you're gonna have an employer give you not more than 950, and the rest of it you're gonna do on the house, and they're gonna have to slide you some cash under the table as a tip that's not reported, so that you don't overshoot that $1,000. Or you're gonna be working on a cash only job that pays you cash, so that you don't have to declare the money, so that you can get that 800 and have the 24 that you need to survive on. But the average American needs 24 to 30,000 a year to stay poor. And if the government is giving you 9,000, where you gonna get the other 1,800 from? Even while physically disabled, you got to take your ass back to work. His her dad got crutches by a steel factory. Oh, her dad got crushed. That sucks. By a steel factory bin. He got 1,700, but he's dying. Yeah. So he got crushed by a steel factory bin, and all he's getting is 1,700. Just because her shoulders don't work, she might get 500. She that's gonna be the taxes on the food stamp card. She gonna be she gonna be broken into some bitch. So y'all can't depend on the system. And with what's going on right now, the government is changing and stop being so enabling to its people. And while the government is stopping the behavior of being so enabling to its people, the benefits that you once used to get with little or no effort, you're not getting that anymore. Back in the 80s, yeah, he was getting 1,700 back in the 80s, and look at how they still offering 1,700 in 2025. At like 45 years ago, they was offering more money 45 years ago in comparison to the standard of living than what they're offering right now, because that 1,700 is still standard. If you really got crushed by a factory bin, you're still getting 1,700, 1,800 right now. That's what you're getting if you get crushed by a factory bin in 2025. But the standard of living back in the 80s was like $500 or $700 a month for rent, 900 for like a 3 or 4 bedroom. And now in 2025, that same 4 5 bedroom is like $3,000 a month. A 1 bedroom is like $900 a month, and efficiency is $800 a month. So really, in order for you to be on Social Security disability, you would have to be renting a room from somebody who has a full-time job so that you don't have to worry about nothing else. And the only place that you're gonna pull that shit off with, family. And he ain't got no family that's willing to take you in. You got a hard way to go. Either that's funny because people can get some government help, but the math still doesn't work. You can't survive. That's legit though. The government did that on purpose. The people who really need it will get it, but it ain't enough to survive. So the people who don't need it, it ain't worth it. You can make more by getting off your ass and doing more. But notice the funny thing about it is Social Security disability is enough, ironically, to cover a nursing home. You could put your behind in a nursing home and somebody will wipe your behind and sponge bath you every day and give you your meds and keep you dependent to their authority where you a grown behind child and your room and board, your food, everything covered. But you get up when they tell you to get up. You go to the common area when they tell you to go to the common area. You go to bed when they tell you to go to bed. You're not allowed to socialize with certain people. Your adult privileges have been taken away, and you are now treated like a child because you are a dependent of that nursing home. Now, as long as you're trying to maintain independence, it ain't it, you can't afford it. You can't afford it. And the design is that way because you're not willing to you're not capable of cheating the system because the system ain't put down enough money to be cheated. You can't steal from somebody who ain't got nothing. Because her mom died and her brother spent and then bounced. Oh, he spent the money in the bounce and then she could take over herself. Woo! Yeah, yep, in a nursing home. Hospice. Yeah, that sucks. So that is possibly worse than dying. No, yeah. Outliving your income, outliving your retirement is worse than dying. And being in a nursing home where you're at the mercy of somebody else as an adult child, where they tell you when you can move and when you can't move. It's almost like a prison. It's just different. They don't have bars on the walls, but it's not like your ass can get up and go to the corner store and go pick you up a quarter bill. You know what I mean? Yeah, you got the visiting hours, which means your homies can't come by and smoke a J with you whenever they feel like it. You know what I mean? It's worse than dying. You're living helpless under the authority of somebody else, limited to where you're allowed to go and limited to what you're allowed to do. All because you can't afford to live your best life on your last days because you spent your whole life continuously trying to grind towards a more expensive standard of living without ever putting an extra blanket between your current standard of living and your retirement. If you're not trying to find a way to stop, you're going to work till you die. You probably gonna spend your last days digging your own damn grave so that when they go to bury your ass, all they gotta do is throw you in the hole. Because you're not thinking about when do I enjoy life? Because as men, we feel like grinding is the way we're supposed to be. We define ourselves as men by getting up and going out and making money every day and coming back and paying for the wife and the kids and the girlfriend and all of this other stuff. But we do not ever think about who the fuck's gonna take care of me when I can't do this shit no more. That's right, keeping up with the Joneses. And it's not just keeping up with the Joneses. It is a social expectation that when you get more money, your lifestyle is supposed to improve. That's not true. When you get more money, you have more money. You choose to improve your lifestyle. But you got to determine the difference between a positive improvement where you went from old rags to clothes with no holes in them. You went from shoes with no soles in them to newer shoes. You went from not being able to take a shower every day to being able to take a shower twice a day. That bare necessities kind of stuff. You went from sleeping on the floor to sleeping on the bed. Certain standards of living you're supposed to be able to upgrade that. The difference between sharing a plate of food, so everybody having their own plate of food, you're supposed to upgrade certain stuff. But the difference between having a reliable vehicle that's 25 years old versus having a car that just came out yesterday, the difference between having shoes on your feet and having the latest J's that came out signed by MJ right before he passed, the difference between Ciroc and Patron versus Bush. You know what I mean? There's certain things in life that are called luxuries, which is wasteful spending. That's not improving your standard of living. That's improving your entertainment. That's the standard of entertainment. And there's a difference between a standard of living and a standard of entertainment. There's a huge difference. Just because you can pay $1,000 a month worth of phone bill, don't mean that you need to. You know, you have to find a way to make this situation work. You have to find a way to retire on your own. And that's what we're going to be trying to build for y'all. Is that my self worth drastically improved after my divorce and my pay rate? But your self worth is how you value yourself. Your financial worth might have drastically improved because your divorce allowed you to pay your own self more than what you pay for her. But your financial worth, hold on, we have a method to calculate your financial worth to yourself. How much money do you have in the bank? You don't have to tell me what it is. Divide that by the cost of living. How many months can you go without checking into work and collecting a paycheck before you're living on the side of the street? Think about that for yourself. If the answer to that question is the 2 weeks I've already taken off, can't take any more days off because I will risk starting to lose everything, you have a lot to grow. If you say, well, I could probably go off 2 or 3 more months, technically, you have enough time to recover from the injury. You think about it, yeah, I could probably run 2 or 3 years with the current standard of living that I got. You're off to a decent start. The day that you can say that based on what I have and based on what I spend, I could probably stop working today and not go back to work for the next 10 to 15 years, that is when you've made it. Okay. So from where we are today to where we want to be, yeah, your bills are about 1,200 a month. So if you have $120,000 in savings, you might be all right because $1,200 a month is about 12 to 15,000 a year, and 120,000 might last you about 10 years. You don't have $120,000. If you only have like $10,000, $15,000, that might last you 6 months. You don't got enough to retire on, which means you got a lot of work to go. He said, I cut the fat a long time ago. That's true. But now you have to build on it. That's the goal now. Yeah, a quarter of your pay. So even though it's a quarter of your pay, the you understand that some of your bills includes that truck. So, you said that truck is like another $1,000. So that's like $2,200 a month what you're paying until that truck note's gone. Once the truck note's gone, then you've got the 1,200 a month, right? And that's a quarter of your pay, right? So that means that three-quarters of your pay could go towards savings. So you're looking at $3,600 a month that you could put towards savings, which is upward of $36,000 in 10 months, about $42,000 a year. And I told you that if you're putting away 42,000 a year, that within 10 years, you'd have $400,000 plus interest. You start adding 20% interest in there. Out of every $40,000 you drop into the high interest stock options, you're getting an extra $10,000. So you're racking up at least another 50,000 a year. So every 2 years, you're drawing back 100 grand at least without doing a compound interest formula. And every 2 years, if you're putting 100 grand, that means 5 years, you're at a half million, right? 5 years, you're at a half million. No, 10 years, you're at a half million because I said every 2 years, you're putting away 100 grand. So 10 years, you're at a half million. At a half million, 20% interest, 18 to 20% interest, half million, you're still bringing in about 200,000 a year. Now, you said that 3/4 of your income, which is hypothetically somewhere around the magnitude of about 50 to 60,000 a year. Now, the difference between 50 to 60,000 a year right now, and if you stop working tomorrow, you'll be homeless by February, versus 200,000 a year in 10 years, because 3/4 of your income you put away because you didn't need it and you're not doing anything else with it, and you put it away, and in 10 years you got a $500,000 sitting in stock options that's paying you 200,000 a year, which is more money than what you're making right now. That's how you set up your retirement. Because you say, well, shit, if I take this $3,600 and put it where I need to put it at in 10 years with that half million, even after taxes, if you only got 400,000, you're still looking at over 90,000 a year. And if you're living off of less than 50,000 a year right now, when you're getting 90,000 a year from your dividends, you realize that you could take 50% of your dividends, reinvest it into the stock portfolio to keep increasing your money, take what you need, pay for your standard of living, and still have money to travel. Because if you're drawing back over a hundred grand, if you're drawing back over 100 grand on cash stocks, that 100 grand, then you only need like 50 of it. 50 of it keeps your house together. 20 of it you can go to another country with. That's 70, and 30 grand you could put back into the stock market to increase the dividend payouts. You would never have to work again. And it just takes you 10 years because you're living at 25% of your standard of living. 25% of your income is your standard of living. And the other 75%, you reinvest it. So in 10 years, each American can do exactly what I'm telling you to do right now. Each American can do that. Take 75% of their money, stop wasting it on bullshit, and put it away so that you, in 10 years, you can say, fuck this job, no matter what job it is, and keep living the life that you're living right now, or live a slightly better life and not have to go to work anymore. Not everybody can, no guru, a financial guru of any kind, will sit you down and tell you that story. They're going to swear to God that you've got to join their boot camp. They're going to swear to God that you got to get their platform. They're going to swear to God that you got to do their overnight, whatever, whatever. But I just sat here and told you in a 45-minute time frame that you could literally just do some research and put your money away in the right place, where the money that you don't need on a day-to-day basis could have you stop working in 10 years. So it is 2025 going into 2026. You said in 2 months you're done paying your truck. So from February of 2026 to February of 2036, you should be retired. Plain and simple. And in that time frame, not only should you be able to tell me thank you because you told me so, Xander, you should also be able to tell somebody else to do the same shit. Now, what about crypto? Crypto is a highly volatile scenario that is very profitable for an experienced investor. If you're not experienced, I wouldn't fuck with it if I was you. If you want to touch base with crypto, crypto is good to invest in, but crypto is something that you invest in with the dividends from your stock portfolio. So after you make your $500,000 worth of money in 10 years, where you're good to go, you got 30% of the money that you're not going to spend on living a life that you want to live, where you don't have to worry about where your money's coming from. And then you want to take 10 or $20,000 out of the extra money you want to go invest it in the cryptocurrency. Yeah, you can do that, because it's money that it's profit that has already been made off the principal that you don't need. And money that you don't need can be invested in highly volatile scenarios. Taking your principal and investing it, you need that principal. And if you invest it, investing that into something volatile, you're going to end up risking losing it. And if you lose it, now your retirement is gone. You don't want to do that. You want to start off by building yourself a stable foundation of investment opportunities first. And then after you build a stable opportunity of investment opportunities, then you start going into volatility. XRP is going to be the same way. XRP is actually supposed to be the catalyst in between the trades, the tokenization and everything to that effect. We talked about that 2 weekends ago, matter of fact. Because last week we talked about crypto. Last week, Tuesday, we talked about crypto. And that Saturday before that, we talked about the tokenization. And I think we covered the tokenization on last week Tuesday. So the XRP, it's hype. It's hype, but it is supposed to aid in the transactional sale of the tokenization of actual assets, which is equivalent to cryptocurrency trades, which was supposed to be microtransactions. It was supposed to be a form of currency. It's not currency, but it was supposed to be a form of currency, digital currency. And XRP is going to be almost on the same magnitude. But when you start talking about making profits, you're not trying to make profits off of XRP. You're trying to make profits off of the software that's required to make XRP functional. So now you're not even investing in XRP. You're investing in the companies that makes XRP what it is. You're not just investing in crypto for the sake of investing in crypto. You can invest in crypto ETFs so that you don't have to worry about the volatility of crypto going down 3% yesterday when you ask me about crypto. Today Monday and crypto just went down. Well, no, today Tuesday now, crypto just went down yesterday Monday, 3%. After the 27% slide, after the 5% gain, it went back down 3%. So overall, it's 2% higher than what it was after it crashed. And after January 1st, it's going to start going on a decline. There is going to be an incline between April and October. You're going to see an incline between April and June, and then another decline right before the 4th of July. And then you're going to see an incline between the 4th of July and a decline in August right before school starts. And then you're going to see another incline 2 weeks after school starts, especially right after students starts getting their money together. You're going to see an incline right up until Halloween, and then right after Halloween, it's going to do that decline yet again. It happens every year. It's a macro level trend in cryptocurrency. But ChatGTP is a software. You can use Perplexity, and it's actually more advanced than ChatGTP. You can hold a whole conversation with Perplexity. ChatGTP just gives you an answer. Perplexity organizes the information from the internet that would be a more finely tuned and finely structured Google search. But it's an AI that allows you to find information. But yes, do something to assist the patent research, and then sell the rights to a. You don't want to do. You want to sell the rights to 100 patents. I thought it said 100% for a moment there. Yes, you want to sell the patent rights uh, for the ones that you have floating in your head and make you some money off of those. Because you can Google it. You can do because what I'm gonna do, put together a format as to where to go and who to. Because you got to be careful which patent companies you're going with. You got to do research on the patent company because there's certain type of patent companies that are beneficial for certain types of stuff. It's not just a broad spectrum scenario, but the patent really is a legal document that says that this is your creative property and nobody else can make a profit off of it. And then if you find out that somebody is making a profit off of it, you have to have the money to take legal action against them to be reimbursed on the royalties from your idea. But you have to prove that your idea was patented before they started making a profit on the product. That way, when the patent is finalized, you're getting royalties on it. So if you have a patent for an idea, and they got plenty of patents pending, and you can actually get a patent to modify a patent. That's weird. And depending on where the patent is and how much you got to deal with, some patents can be cheap and some patents can be upward of $5,000. It depends on how much you have and how much you have to go into it. But if the idea is something worth doing, somebody's going to pay more money to use that patent than you spent to get the patent. Because then my dad did his own patent research but he also got screwed over by J.C. Penney, and they voted out of his own company and forced not to compete for 11 years. But see, that's why I said you got to be careful. So here's the thing: you are creating a patent. Your dad had an idea, he got patented, and then he brought in a board. And this is where venture capitalists fuck you sideways. Because what happens is that you have a certain number of shares and you make this mistake of selling too many shares. If you want to stay in control of your company, you have to maintain 51% of your company. The other 49 can go to other people, but you have to hold 51% of your company. If you do an even split where everybody gets 10%, you now have 10% of your company. And if 10 different or nine other different people all vote the same, 90% of the company just voted you out. You have to maintain 51% of your company and then divide the other 49% versus all the other people that want to invest in your company. Anybody who wants 50% or more of your company is not worth it because they will shark tank your ass. They will come in and they will buy, and they'll buy from different names. You'll have 13 different lawyers belong to one person, 13 different shell companies belong to one person. And then that person who has a majority share of each one of those other companies now has majority share of your company. It's a hostile takeover. But if you're making a patent, though, you own the patent. And the contract that you have to have derived is that they will be authorized to utilize your patent and manufacture the product that that patent is based on, as long as they give you a certain percentage of money off of the profits over a certain period of time, where they would have to renew the patent rights with you every so often. So if you did a 50-year patent with them, it'll last until you die. But if you did a 5 or 10 year production patent where they can use it for right now, but they got to check in, you got to get paid before they can keep using it. It's one of those things where, and then you got to see the royalties. He said, yeah, they roofied him at the bar with a chick, and then the morning after held a meeting without him and voted him out. Well, you're not supposed to mix business with pleasure. You out there at a business meeting and you are out there at a business meeting. It ain't getting drunk. It's the fact that you out there at a business meeting with something other than some ice water or a cup of coffee. You notice I've been on this 2 hour and 34-minute podcast and I'm sitting over here on a 36-ounce cup of caffeine and chasing it with a bottle of water. It's business. You're not supposed to be out there drinking on business. What business tycoons do is they take the bait, bring them to entertain them, distract them from the whole business deal itself, get them to have a fantastic job, and while they're fucked up, have them sign all the contracts. Then, embarrassed about how they got bamboozled, they let it slide. But you realize that you have to be coherent to sign a contract. So, since you're not coherent, the contract isn't valid. And neither is all the money that you made off the contract that you signed. So, to keep the money that you signed, you got to let the contract stand, which means you just got your ass kicked out of your own damn company. But under most circumstances, you should go into the situation sober as an ox and walk out of that situation sober as an ox and make sure that under no circumstances that you are getting involved with any type of affairs before, during, or after the deal because you don't know who you're socializing with. Oh man, we're out in Vegas, have a good time. This strange girl started talking to me. Next thing you know, blackmail evidence starts coming through your email. The more you're worth, the more dangerous human interaction is. Keep it professional. You represent the company that is you.com. That is you incorporated. And whatever it is that you do, can either put you on the face of TMZ or Fox News in a heartbeat. You'll be a CNN uh, subtopic real quick. You could be a stock exchange discussion real quick because all it takes is for you to let your guard down, thinking that the people that you're doing business with have your intentions in mind. They don't give a fuck about you. They want what you have. And if they are not capable of giving you what they want you to accept to get it, they will find other means to get it from you, which means that the whole time you're doing this deal, you got to be on the best behavior. And the whole time you on a board, you got to be on your best behavior. When you decide to hang out and do some stuff, you're not even talking about some letting your collar loose and letting your tie fly in the wind kind of stuff. You talking about going somewhere and isolate yourself in the middle of a monastery somewhere and meditating for a little while because if they ever catch you off your guard, they're gonna take you out of your position. But when the company gets so big that the guys at the top don't matter anymore, the company is going to make enough money where everybody's making money. The guys at the top can keep making money because nobody's going to try to push you out as long as you're not interfering with them making the kind of money that they're trying to make. Oh, he said, well, however, he did not disclose that he had many more patents, nor did he give them uh, the mathematical formula to make them. Well, of course not. The fact is that if they got you once, you're not gonna let them get you again. But they got you the first time because you wasn't thinking about how they would do this to you. Because a lot of times, honest people think that everybody's honest, and honest people get taken advantage of. The people who know better, yeah, you're not gonna let that happen. And the reason why you're not gonna let that happen is because you heard the stories from an honest person who got took. That's the whole reason. So now that we know that when you get these patents, these 100+ patents, you know that the people that's going to want your patent will try to find a way to take your patent from you, knowing that when you put them, look, here go the thing: you are not selling them 100% of the patent. You're selling them 10% users' rights. You want to maintain 70, 80, 50% ownership of this patent. After you reach a certain level, if four companies come in and buy 10% each, that's it. You're not trying to sell it no more. That's it. Too many people got it. Because if nine different companies come in and buy it, now they got nine different companies with 10%. You only got 10%. Then nine companies can come together, vote you out. So you have to have it set up 10% users' rights, maximum 40% to all rights users combined. You got to have that word again here, combined, where you maintain a guaranteed 60% ownership of the patent 100% of the time. Nobody can vote you out. Everybody can come together and still be less than your majority vote. That way you don't get took. He said, no one wants he said, well, no, he wasn't a drink. He was played darts at the bar and drank in moderation, but he drank something. That's the problem. I'm telling you, it's hard to slip a roofie in a glass of ice water. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's hard to spike a coffee. It's not impossible, but it's a little bit more challenging. Alcohol already makes you weak. And then when you slip something in there, rohypnol or something like that, Spanish fly, something like that, you end up you don't taste it. You don't feel the fuzz. But certain kinds of drinks just don't process well with the kind of roofies that they put specifically in alcohol, and that's the reason why. I like don't drink nothing. My mama used to always say, "Don't drink nothing you can't see through when you're in a group setting, because if they put something in it, it's not supposed to bubble. It's gonna bubble. It's been tampered with. That's that's what we know, you know. So clear drinks is what you want. And then they had to knock him out. They'd have had the meeting without him and blew him out. That's sad. That's sad for him. I'm glad that you told us that. That's great advice. That's a learning curve though. That's a learning curve. So for the rest of us, we learned that they got some shady people out there. J.C. Penney. When you go shopping at J.C. Penney, just know that J.C. Penney got some stuff from this man's daddy's ideas. And when you going to buy your makeup for your girl, just know JC Penney got some of their stuff from the wrong way of doing things. But yeah, you got to go and I got to go too. I was wrapping the show up before you got here, but I sure got to give you an extra 45 minutes because we had started on time today. We're going to try our best to see how often we can do that. I want to thank you guys again for coming to tonight's show. And I'm going to say, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you, ladies, to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. And then, fellas, I give y'all this information to help y'all become higher value men so that y'all can take proactive effort into changing the things in life that you don't like, that you want to improve, and then navigating yourselves around the things in life that you cannot control. Ladies, while this is a male driven podcast from the male's perspective, you too can take this information and utilize it to make yourselves higher value women. That is the way things work. He said, no, they did worse than that. They sold his patents to a company called Sonic Systems that makes his, oh, omnidirectional spherical speaker enclosures. That's the guys from back in Radio Shack days. He fucked. That's dirty. So what they did was they voted him out of the deal, sold off his stuff to an extra person so he couldn't get it back from the original person that cheated him out of it so that they could completely have total control over his stuff. And that's where the sound sphere, the bass tube came from. Y'all the JBL speaker, y'all know what we talk about right now, that round JBL speaker with the cone thing on the top of it. That's what he's talking about right now. That's exactly what he's talking about right now. It's called all kind of shit these days, but that's what he's talking about. That round subwoofer that makes better sound than a box speaker. That's what he's talking about right now. Look, as soon as you described it, I knew exactly what you were talking about. I'm like, oh damn, that's where that came from. That's where that came. Cause how the hell they could not make good speakers, and then all of a sudden this shit just come out of nowhere. Pioneer. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell you. I know, and it's crazy. It's crazy. But this is the stuff that happens to us when we get scammed. Whether we get scammed for $10 or we get scammed by a multi-million-dollar business deal, we never live that down. But we always tell everybody else how to be careful so that they know not to let themselves get scammed too. When you get catfish, you start warning people about how to be careful about things so that you don't get catfish too. You learn from the mistakes of others, not because they deliberately fucked their own life up, but because they got caught off guard by somebody else that was diabolical. And if you start paying attention to the diabolical behavior in this world, you're able to do better because you're able to overcome from the community knowledge that we call common knowledge back in the day that is not readily distributed these days because people are distributing this knowledge for a price now. I'm gonna give it to you for free. As I find it, I'm gonna share it with y'all. That's why I tell y'all jump into membership because for what? $3, $4 a month, you get all kind of scoop and skinny from me where motherfuckers be charging y'all $350 an hour to find out some of the stuff. I'm giving y'all all across financial markets and personal development. Y'all not gonna get that nowhere else. He said, I wish I could have listened to your podcast about 30 years ago. Shit, if I was doing this podcast 30 years ago, I'd be Bill Gates rich. He also then built 11-foot column version of it. Oh, that's deep, man. Shoot. Look, you gotta look. At least you know that your daddy done made some changes in this country, and you can make changes too. Because you know, good ideas run in the family. Brilliance runs in the family. There's a theory of history repeating itself. But the difference is that if you learn from the mistakes of your ancestors, you don't have to relive the same mistakes that they made. So since you got 100 patents in your head and he lost 100% of his patent to somebody else because he didn't do it right, not knowing that there was another way to do it, now that you know that there's another way to do it, you're going to do 100 patents. And each one of those patents, you're going to make sure that you lock it in a way where you don't get got the way he got. And each one of them patents paying you $100,000 a patent, that's $1 million. You ain't got to work no more. So you should spend the next 10 years trying to put your patents on the market. That's the next Warren Buffett move right there. But that's all I got for you guys for tonight. I want to thank y'all for coming to this and that. We got a lot of information for y'all coming up, so y'all need to make sure that y'all like and subscribe and hit those notification buttons because we're going to be putting up Tuesday and Wednesday over the next couple of days. But we have Thursday, Friday, and hopefully Saturday up there already. And Sunday is going to be questions and comments from the fans. So make sure that y'all come back. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow night.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. Standing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. I'm not landing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.